Ever stand on the produce aisle and just wonder how all that colorful, fresh stuff actually gets there?
It's a hidden world most people don't think about.
Exactly. So today we're diving into the career that makes it all happen. Fruit and vegetables distribution manager.
Keeping the world fed, one delicious fruit basket at a time, right?
We've got a whole stack of resources here to break it all down. What does the role actually entail? What skills do you need?
And how do you even get your foot in the door? We've got you covered.
This guide actually paints a really intricate picture of this job. It's not just about trucks and logistics. It's about this whole network, from farm to table.
It's about freshness, efficiency, making sure consumers have that variety year-round. It's a lot to juggle.
This guide mentions negotiating contracts, navigating market trends.
Oh, and staying on top of those ever-changing food safety regulations, definitely.
It's a lot more complex than you might think.
It really is. And we haven't even touched on the tech side of things, which is huge. Like, imagine using blockchain to track a mango from the orchard to the store.
Or AI, telling you the perfect time to harvest those grapes for peak ripeness. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of the job itself. This source breaks down the key skills of a fruit and vegetables distribution manager, and it highlights monitoring as a whopping 59% of the job.
Makes sense, right? You're monitoring your team, the supply chain, demand. Everything's always in motion.
So you're basically a conductor, but instead of an orchestra, it's a symphony of fruit baskets and delivery trucks.
Exactly. And you have to be able to adjust on the fly, just like a conductor would. Then right up there with monitoring is critical thinking at 58%. I mean, that makes sense too. What happens when a heat wave hits during peak growing season? Or when a truck breaks down with a shipment of ripe avocados?
Talk about a high-pressure situation.
You need to be able to think on your feet, solve problems. It's not for the faint of heart.
So for someone just starting out, maybe working as a distribution assistant or coordinator, how do those skills actually come into play?
Let's say you're a coordinator and a farmer calls. They've got a problem with a batch of strawberries. Active listening is crucial there. You're not just hearing their words, you're really trying to understand their constraints. Maybe you even offer solutions, like connecting them with a composting facility to minimize waste. It's about being a problem solver, not just an order taker.
Building those relationships, that's so key. Now, this guide also lays out a clear career path. You start as an assistant, then become a coordinator, then a supervisor, and finally, you reach the top, distribution manager.
And it's a climb. You're constantly learning, taking on more responsibility at each level. But from what I've heard, it's an industry that rewards a go-getter attitude.
So let's say you land that entry-level job as a fruit and vegetables distribution assistant. What does that look like day to day? Are we talking about endless pallets of oranges and early morning trips to the farmer's market?
Well, it's definitely fast-paced, and yeah, you might find yourself amidst a mountain of citrus at some point. But at that assistant level, it's really about mastering the basics. You're getting to know the different types of produce, how to handle them properly, making sure everything is labeled, packaged, ready for shipment.
It all starts with those fundamentals.
Exactly. And then as you move into that junior coordinator role, you start seeing the bigger picture. You're coordinating daily activities, interacting with suppliers, and that's where those critical thinking skills really start to matter. Like, let's say a shipment is delayed, you need to figure out how to adjust delivery routes, communicate with customers, maybe even find a different supplier to make sure those shelves stay stocked.
So it's a crash course in logistics, problem solving, all while surrounded by, well, let's be honest, probably the amazing smell of fresh produce.
Right. And it doesn't stop there. As you step into a supervisor role, your focus widens even more.
You're not just keeping those fruits and veggies moving, you're leading a team.
You're developing strategies, analyzing sales data, maybe even collaborating on new product launches. It's a whole other level of responsibility.
So it's not just about being good with logistics. You have to be a leader, a strategist, almost like a produce visionary.
That's a great way to put it. And that's also where the sustainability aspect really comes into play. As a supervisor, you have the opportunity to make choices that reduce waste, promote ethical sourcing, all of that.
You're basically shaping the future of fresh food.
In a way, yeah. And this guide really stresses the need for continuous learning in this field, which makes sense when you think about all the tech advancements happening.
It's like every day there's a new gadget or gizmo that's changing the game.
Totally. Like, imagine sensors in the fields that can tell you the exact moisture level of a tomato plant.
Or like AI algorithms that predict the perfect moment to harvest those peaches for peak flavor.
It's like having a crystal ball for the supply chain. And then there's blockchain, which is already being used to track produce from farm to store. Transparency is huge these days.
Consumers want to know where their food comes from. But even with all this cool technology, you can't forget about the human side of things. This guide emphasizes the importance of networking and building relationships.
For sure, technology can streamline things, but it's people who make it all happen. Farmers, truck drivers, warehouse workers, everyone plays a part.
It's a team effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A good distribution manager gets that. They treat everyone in the supply chain with respect.
Because at the end of the day, everyone just wants to get that fresh, healthy food to the table. Okay, so we've talked about the perks, but we should probably touch on the potential downsides too. This guide mentions some drawbacks like it's physically demanding, long hours sometimes.
Especially when you're first starting out. You might be working in warehouses, cold storage facilities, moving heavy boxes.
So you got to be comfortable with a little manual labor.
Definitely. And because everything's perishable, flexibility is key. Early mornings, late nights.
Weekends probably too.
Sometimes. If there's an emergency or a delay, you gotta be ready to jump in. It's not your average 9 to 5.
It takes a special kind of dedication. So what are some common entry-level positions someone could target to break into this field?
Well, this guide specifically mentions fruit and vegetables distribution assistant as a great starting point.
It's like Produce 101, right?
Exactly. You learn the ropes from the ground up, get hands-on experience, build those connections. It's invaluable. And then from there, you might move into a junior coordinator role, taking on more responsibility.
Sounds like a fantastic way to learn and grow in a fast-paced industry.
Definitely. And speaking of challenges, let's talk about the interview process. RoleCatcher has some great tips here.
They really do. One thing that stands out to me is how specific the interview questions are.
Totally. They want to make sure you can handle the pressure, understand the complexities of a perishable supply chain. It's not just about your average interview skills.
So what kind of questions can someone expect?
Well, one common question is, how do you manage inventory levels and ensure timely delivery? And this is where you really showcase your understanding of the industry.
Right, because you're dealing with perishable goods, so it's not just about having enough on hand.
It's about having the right amount at the right time. You'd want to talk about inventory management systems, forecasting techniques, maybe share a story about a time you successfully anticipated a surge in demand, like avocados during Super Bowl week.
So it's about being proactive, thinking ahead.
Exactly. And when it comes to timely delivery, highlight your logistics experience, route optimization, building those relationships with transportation providers. You want them to know you understand how important it is to maintain that cold chain.
Nobody wants a box of melted berries.
Exactly. Another common question is, how do you ensure compliance with food safety regulations?
That's a big one, right?
Huge. Food safety is paramount. You want to demonstrate a strong understanding of HACCP principles, any local or regional guidelines. Talk about your track record of maintaining sanitary conditions, temperature control, all of that.
You're basically a food safety superhero.
In a way, yeah. And if you've implemented any innovative safety programs in the past, definitely mention those.
Okay, now for the curveball question. Tell me about a time you failed. Everyone dreads this one, but it's really a chance to show your self-awareness.
Exactly. Don't shy away from it. Choose an example of a setback you learned from. Walk them through your thought process, the steps you took to fix it, and most importantly, the lessons you learned.
It's about showing that you can learn from your mistakes and come back stronger.
Exactly. Be genuine, share your experiences, and let that passion shine through.
Because that enthusiasm is contagious. It really is. Passion can take you far, but so can a good salary. What's the earning potential like in this field?
Well, there's no magic number, unfortunately. It really depends on a bunch of factors: location, experience, company size. But generally speaking, a fruit and vegetables distribution manager can expect a competitive salary.
And it probably goes up as you climb that career ladder, right?
Exactly. Plus, a lot of companies offer benefits packages on top of the salary, health insurance, retirement plans, things like that.
So it's a career with potential for both financial stability and growth. That's great.
Yeah.
But let's face it, in this line of work, sometimes things don't go according to plan. What about emergencies?
Oh, definitely. Imagine a heat wave hits right as those peaches are ready to ship, or a major highway shuts down because of flooding. You have to be able to handle those curveballs.
It's like you're captaining a ship, right? And a storm suddenly blows in.
That's a great way to put it, and that's why it's so important to have a strong network in this industry. When something unexpected happens, you need to be able to call on your contacts, find creative solutions.
It's all about working together to get those fruits and veggies where they need to be.
Absolutely. And it highlights something really important about this career, the impact.
It's about more than just profits and logistics.
It's about contributing to something bigger. As a fruit and vegetables distribution manager, you're making sure people have access to fresh, healthy food.
You're like a food hero.
Well, but speaking of impact, we should also mention the sustainability aspect, which is becoming more and more important in this field.
Definitely. Consumers really care about where their food comes from and how it impacts the planet.
Exactly. So a successful distribution manager needs to be aware of those concerns, reducing waste, using sustainable packaging, optimizing transportation routes.
It's about making responsible choices every step of the way.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that we're all connected from farm to table and our choices have consequences.
Hmm.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, if there's one thing I want listeners to remember, it's this. If you're looking for a career that's challenging, rewarding, and lets you make a real difference in the world,
While also constantly learning and growing.
exactly, this might be the perfect field for you. It's fast-paced, it's ever-changing, and it's full of opportunities for those who are passionate about fresh food.
Well said. It's been a pleasure exploring this career path with you. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned a thing or two about the world of fruit and vegetable distribution. Until next time, happy listening.